Now, can you help me to welcome up Mr. John Kennedy for our service?
Might refer to these passages again a little bit later. Did anybody watch the live link up early this morning? The live link up to Korea? No, just asking. Doesn't matter. I watched a little part of it myself, and can't remember what I did with my glasses. That's the only thing. I found them. That's it. That's when you get old. You don't remember where you put things. I came a bit late, so to the live link up this morning, because I was preparing for the service, and I thought I should connect with two parents. But still, I was late. I have to admit that. And just wanted to give you a little summary of it, in a sense. Hopefully, that you might want to be interested to go back and have a look at it sometime. It was a special rally in Korea related to the reunification of Korea, North and South, and it was, I think, was those provinces probably close to the border in South Korea. And True Mother especially talked about the March the First movement. The real meaning of that movement, she said, was to make a movement that God would be the center of Korea in the future. Then she was reflecting upon the cause of the fall. It was to do to self-centered thoughts and feelings of the first ancestors, so that the world today is like full of self-centered human thoughts or actions or nations, or it's all, she kind of connects it like that. We're all self-centered from the fallen lineage. And then one phrase that she said was kind of touched me or made me think a little bit more deeply. She says, how sad in a way, she said, that communism came from the Christian cultural sphere. That communism that came into Korea actually started in the Christian sphere, in the Western nations. I thought about that. That was quite. I don't think about that as much, but truly, that's something we have to think about. How did a godless thought come out of the Christian cultural sphere? So maybe something we have to figure out, like within Europe as well, to restore that. Some kind of indemnity possibly is needed on that level. That's my own thought, really, on that last point. Because she mentioned about, there was tremendous historical indemnity paid in the First and Second World Wars because of the failure to receive the Messiah. One time I used to think that the First and Second World War was almost inevitable, but sometimes when I listen to Mother or to parents, I think these things could have been avoided. But there was tremendous indemnity paid, in a sense. Like that's the foundation we're standing on, this victory, that they made that condition to make a foundation to receive the Messiah. And then, so that I try to think about that more deeply in the future. Mother had a cough when she was speaking, and she coughed once, and then she had a drop of water, and then she coughed again. But Mother has a very nice way of addressing the issue. She said, the atmosphere, the air in this part of is beautiful, she said, but the air here must be a little bit dry, she said, in the room. And anyway, I thought that was nice. Everybody clapped down with that. So then she goes on to talk about the only begotten daughter. I thought about that. We had this expression, the only begotten daughter, and I thought, it's really amazing True Mother can talk like this. It's a little bit related to the passage we read this morning, that true mother is a woman, so it's kind of easier for a woman to be accepted by men than a man to be, speaking plainly or directly. Like true father spoke so directly many times, but then father was tremendously entertaining and embracing as well. But true mother is very succinct, if that's the word, and concise. But because she's a woman, she can do that, because she's a mother, and because true mother has this beautiful smile, and they say like she has a very nice way of speaking. So that in itself is a great attribute of a woman, that they have that characteristic or a feminine quality. And I think that's an amazing aspect of today's providence. Sometimes I think about the providence and we think of it something, God's providence, but in this sense, the providence is the person. The providence is true parents, is true mother. Like it's the same thing in that sense. I felt this when I was watching that. Then she said something else I'll come to. So I want you to go back on that if you have a chance to see it sometime. And one thing she mentioned in her speech this morning was, I think it was last night actually, but it was our early morning. She talked about Ethiopia, and she praised Ethiopia because of their support for the United Nations. Like they're one of the countries that, and she said, I didn't actually hear the testimony from the Ethiopian. It might have been an ambassador or somebody on that level from Ethiopia. And then she said it's something like, all the blessed families here should support Ethiopia. Let Ethiopia become one of the nations. And the ambassador from Ethiopia stood up and he took it very well. From that point of view, True Mother is always witnessing, witnessing in the right sense, especially to try to elevate people, elevate their hearts, and bring up the situation or the environment that you can contact these people. He said, all the blessed couples, you need to welcome the Ethiopia people and so forth. I must take a new interest in Ethiopia after that. It was very good news yesterday besides all of this. Does anybody know the good news? Or bad news for Ireland? Japan beat us in the rugby. That was the second news I wanted to say. The first news was True Mother was speaking in Korean. But funnily, I didn't feel too bad about it because my wife was watching it with me. So we both enjoyed the game, and afterwards we felt it was like a victory for some side of us anyway. Half the people in the room were happy, and half were depressed. But I thought it was a fantastic game. Did anybody else see it? Did you see it? Who were you shouting for? We have to wait for England now, and they're doing well, aren't they? England? Yeah. So, get back to this. I'm going to bring out one or two points from the speech. She said how we cannot return to God's lineage, and she said how extraordinary the blessing is that we can become God's children. And I felt that I really don't understand the blessing so deeply, that how important it is to create God's children. We're actually changing the lineage from Satan's lineage to God's lineage. And that's the heart of Mother, to give this amazing blessing and grace to all humanity, not just to keep it to ourselves, but to spread the blessing to all humankind. So I often feel I'm truly lacking in that kind of understanding that the blessing isn't just like for an individual couple, it's much more than that. It's like through us, each blessed couple, we're meant to multiply that goodness, multiply the blessing to your clan, to your extended family, to your tribe, to your nation. And it's amazing like that. Now, so she kind of ended with a very rousing words. Let the fire of oh yeah, one point I just wanted to mention was that, like she said, for example, all the money that was wasted on wars, if you could just stop all this wars and conflict, how much money is available for peace efforts, for building a peaceful world, for the kingdom of heaven on the earth. You probably heard the good news. I read something that President Moon is once peace zone, the president of South Korea. He said he wanted to establish a peace zone near the DMZ or around that area. But that's very similar to our two parents' view, to establish a peace park in that area, and also to establish another office of the United Nations, probably in the same vicinity as well. So all that money could be, like Tufal has said that too. Do you remember when he wanted to build the peace road? Like he was saying, there's trillions of dollars being wasted on the war in Iraq and all of this stuff. And if we could just put that money to creating a positive peace road, joining all the countries around the world, and the peace zone that would exist there, and all of the good things that would come out of it for humanity when they're traveling, and all the blessed families would be able to share, and I think all that kind of thing. Some people are really attracted to that idea. I read a book by Jim Rogers. I don't know if anybody come across him. He spoke at one of our meetings in Korea, and he wrote a book about. He made his money through the shares and stocks, but he traveled around the world when he was younger on my motorbike. And he started off in Ireland, and he went all around, and he went with his girlfriend at the time. And when he went there, he would assess all the countries. Is this a good country to invest? But if you read the book, there's a backstory to it, how difficult just to get into certain countries is. Like you have so many hoops and jumps you have to make just to get into some countries. And so that's amazing that he could catch that vision of a borderless world, where you wouldn't be having to pay people at the borders, and you wouldn't be stopped, and you wouldn't, all of these hassles, that incredible amount of hassles when you have to. But he could feel that if you had a world where there was a road joining countries, no borders, like it would be amazing development for humanity, and creating peace and stability and love and all of those good things. So finish with that part. Now, the other point I wanted to go, I kind of started talking about this really when it wasn't really the point of the Sunday service, but I just thought I'd share that with you. You know that your mother is very busy, and she has a very busy itinerary, and I'd just like to remind you of that. And I know you probably know it, and maybe you've forgotten it, but please think about this one. She had on the September, between the 5th and the 7th, the San Tome Principe. Now, last night was in Korea, at the Gangneung, Korea. That was the rally. On the October the 6th, she's going to Nagoya, Japan. And on the 27th of the 10th, then to Albania. Anybody going to Albania from here? That's two people. One more, please. That's two, that's fine. That's very good. Michael Balcom is always saying, please come to Albania. You'll have a great time there. And then there's a launch of the Korean Christian Leadership Conference, and it's going to happen in Korea. They're trying to launch a branch of the the Christian leadership conferences in Korea, similar to the American clergy leadership conferences. They're going to do a special focus in Korea. I suppose True Mother will have many activities related to that. And then the release of True Mother's autobiographies in November, the 9th of November. Then she's going to Cambodia between the 18th and 21st of November, going to Taiwan on the 23rd of November. Then she's going to South Africa, Johannesburg, on the 7th of December. There's going to be a major blessing in South Africa, maybe 100,000 couples. Going to Paula's, you know the famous, the islands, Paula near Australia. What's it called there, do you know? Paula, yeah. Between the 10th and the 11th. And they're setting up in Sao Paulo, I was looking at that yesterday, they're establishing a women, first ladies for women's in Sao Paulo. Like, it's more like for women leaders. It's going to be an international association for first ladies for peace. They're going to bring together people from all over the Asian sphere or the Pacific Rim sphere to go there. And so that's happening in Sao Paulo. And finally, not finally, but on December, between the 13th and 16th, she's going to the Dominican Republic, and then ending the year in December 28th in New Jersey, New York, with a big gathering for Christian pastors, 30,000 people gathering for that. So if you have any pastor, I'm thinking a lot about the pastors recently. Funnily, we've been living 10 years beside somebody who has some pastoral duties. He belongs to a church an African church in Divine Power Church goes to Blanchardstown. Funnily, when we're leaving in the morning to come to Dublin, he's leaving to go to his church. And the sad part is that we've lived there 10 years without really getting to know them. But I have been doing tentative efforts, and I'm sorry I didn't get anybody for the UFC conference. But anyway, it makes me think about the pastors in that sense. We should be able to reach somebody for that, because Ireland can make a contribution in that sense. So, why I chose this reading this morning was to show the value of True Mother and women in general. True Mother spoke to women through the Women's Federation for many years, but there's some phrases she used fairly consistently when she wanted to explain the situation of women, and she says, women are individual truth bodies. They're not like, they are independent truth bodies. They have their own value in themselves. I think sometimes, even myself, I don't always see the value of my wife as an independent truth body. You know, like, sometimes I have made comments and things and quite a lot about certain things, and she thinks you're treating me like a second-class citizen or something like that. It's just something I might have said, and I never intend. Well, I don't think I intended it consciously to say something, but she sometimes takes it. You know, am I a second-class citizen? And then when I read True Mother's words, she addresses these issues very clearly. She says, women they're not assistants to men, they're individual truth bodies, they have equal value, they are equally sharing, they equally represent, that relationship. So it's amazing that she did that consistently. If you look back, many speeches, there was always this aspect where she dealt with women's historical role and what is their new role in the providence, that we have to bring out the value of women because it's like 50% of the population. We have to encourage them. Men have to encourage or give hope to women, because women are always, as Father said, are always, especially in the true parents' family, like true mother herself, she's carrying the cross of the emotion and the heart, and that's an invisible burden, but it's there. Like as a husband and wife, you probably know that. Like if your wife, if she's dealing with children, or she has many children, she always she has to take the most responsibility for the emotions and the heart and the feelings of their children. I remember myself when when the children were younger, my wife was so active in that area, and I kind of took it for granted, really. But now I'm looking back a lot, I'm thinking I didn't even help that much when the children were very small. I see my son, William, he just had a baby, and he's very proactively waking up at night and looking after the baby, and like taking a very active role in that. Like Eli would be there as well, I'm sure. Anyway, Father said that, just that, I'd like to emphasize that point. That Father, speech was given in 1982 to the 2000 couples, just as they were matched in America. And True Father was explaining the role of men and women, and he expressed about the two parents' situation themselves, and that it's not a simple relationship. There are complications as well, but because of love, you can solve everything through love, and you can become that ideal couple. And in that speech, he came back to me recently because he said, well, women have to have he said, I love watching people do the diving into the deep pool. He Father said himself, I love watching divers. And then he said, he used that analogy to say, well, women need a pool of love, so like their husbands can dive in and they don't hit the bottom. So he asked the sisters, do you have a pool of love? Or are you the sister that will put a rock at the bottom in case when your husband dives in, he's going to bang his head or something? And but he's describing women, women's role, women's feminine heart as an individual truth body, as a representative of God, and therefore men should realize that it's not only the women have the role, the men have the role to encourage their wives, to give some hope, to give some joy to them, encouragement. So I have to ask Ty if I'm doing that sometimes. Am I getting better? It took me ages to realize many things. I think I covered very simple points there, but I just wanted to really encourage people, especially like when you're thinking about even the blessing, going to the blessing. Father said, don't go to blessing, like a woman, for example, said, don't go to just to be taken care of. Some sisters think, oh, I want to get blessed so I can be taken care of by my prince. Now, you need to think a little bit differently. So I don't know if any young people are thinking about that. And then he said, like the smile of a woman is the most precious thing. So he said, women, sisters, don't need to talk so much, but smile more often. And I thought Julia is quite a nice smile. So please, sisters, smile more often. I put my foot in it now. But just thought, can I balance that with a beautiful comment, which is Julia has a beautiful smile. So this morning I was a bit agitated, but she kept smiling, and my frustration abated a small bit. I was a little bit frustrated because of some things, but you don't need to know about that. Anyway. I'd like to conclude, really.
John, just a question.
Yes.
Why do you have the title here?
It's my mistake.
Oh,
It's
sorry,
my bad.
the wrong-
I forgot to change
the
it.
wrong- I'm sorry, wrong heading. This is Ireland. We're amazing. We get everything. We can be looking at that and we can wonder how is that connected to the sermon. Actually, no, it's
It's the role and, the value and role of women.
yeah. So I'm sorry now that must have put you off there. You're probably thinking, what's that doing there? A long time ago, I spoke about that. The role and value of art.
Value is a woman.
Sorry.
Abby, we're getting frustrated.
So thank you very much for your attention today. I don't really have too much more to add to that, really. So I'd like to conclude with that prayer. Our beloved Heavenly Parents, thank you so much for your guidance and your love to each one of us. Please elevate our hearts and help us to become ideal in a true sense, and to give encouragement to each other, and to also elevate you and to bring you into our relationships. We're really grateful to have brothers and sisters gather here together today, and we thank you for this time to share and to reflect together. I pray this in the name of John Kennedy, Bless Central Family. Amen.